The drama surrounding Terence Crawford's retirement has landed like a shockwave through the boxing world, not because fighters never walk away, but because of how, when, and why he chose to do it. This was not a fading legend clinging to relevance or a veteran chasing one last payday. This was an undefeated champion stepping aside at the precise moment when the sport was finally forced to acknowledge his greatness. After years of moving in silence, enduring doubt, and being constantly questioned no matter who he beat, Crawford chose to leave on his own terms, with his record untouched and his legacy intact. That decision alone has forced fans, critics, promoters, and even rivals to re-examine everything they thought they knew about him. For most of his career, Crawford lived inside a contradiction. He dominated divisions, dismantled elite opponents, and achieved feats that should have made him universally celebrated. Yet the praise always came with conditions. When he beat one fighter, the narrative shifted to age. When he beat another, the narrative shifted to timing. When he moved up in weight, the narrative shifted to excuses. No matter how emphatic the performance, the goalposts moved. That constant resistance shaped Crawford into a fighter who never relied on validation. Instead, he built an internal standard that only he could judge, and once that standard was met, he saw no reason to continue sacrificing his body for approval that always arrived late. His final run only amplified that reality. Becoming undisputed across multiple divisions in the modern four-belt era placed him in a category so rare that it defied comparison. Three-time undisputed champion. 5-division world champion. 42 wins without a single loss. No knockdowns suffered. No controversial defeats. No asterisks that could be attached without intellectual dishonesty. In a sport defined by attrition and erosion, Crawford managed to avoid the most brutal ending that claims so many greats. That alone separates him from generations of champions who stayed too long and paid for it with their health. What made the announcement hit harder was the emotion behind it. This was not a calculated press release or a vague social media post teasing leverage. This was a man openly acknowledging the toll of 17 years spent living under discipline, pressure, and constant scrutiny. Crawford did not frame his exit as an escape from competition. He framed it as a victory over the cycle that consumes fighters who refuse to listen to their bodies and minds. Walking away before the sport could take something back from him was not weakness. It was control. Still, boxing never allows a clean ending without controversy. Almost immediately, skepticism followed. Some questioned whether this was real or simply positioning for an even larger payday. Others pointed to the timing, noting that massive fights still sat on the table, including rematches and crossover spectacles that would have shattered financial records. In a sport where retirement often means pause rather than permanence, doubt was inevitable. Even voices outside Crawford's weight class weighed in, dismissing the decision as strategy rather than finality. The reaction from figures tied to crossover boxing only intensified the debate. Comments suggesting the retirement was not genuine poured fuel on an already volatile discussion. To some, it sounded dismissive. To others, it sounded revealing. There had been rumors of monumental offers, including fights that would have generated unprecedented attention and revenue. The idea that Crawford might walk away before those negotiations could even begin left certain parties frustrated, perhaps even resentful. The implication was clear. Crawford chose peace over spectacle. What many fail to grasp is that Crawford's career was never driven by chasing attention. He spent years operating outside the promotional spotlight, often fighting without the marketing machine enjoyed by his peers. Instead of demanding praise, he demanded opponents. Instead of complaining about politics, he dismantled whoever stood in front of him. By the time the industry fully caught up to his value, he had already decided that validation was no longer worth the cost. The business side of boxing, with its fees, stripped titles, and endless maneuvering, only reinforced his belief that walking away clean mattered more than staying entangled. There is also the human element that boxing often ignores. Crawford entered the sport as a child and gave it nearly everything. Birthdays missed, holidays sacrificed, years spent in camps rather than at home. That kind of commitment compounds over time. At some point, even the most competitive athletes begin to weigh moments they cannot get back. For Crawford, the choice was not between another belt and retirement. It was between continuing to grind or finally being present for the life he had postponed. That clarity does not arrive easily, and when it does, ignoring it usually ends badly. Of course, critics remain. Some argue he left just as a new generation was rising. Others point to fights that never happened, rivals who never got a second chance, and divisions that might have tested him further. Those debates will live forever in comment sections and barbershops, just like they do for every legend. But those arguments often ignore context. Crawford did not avoid challenges. He moved up repeatedly. He unified divisions. He took risks that others avoided. The absence of certain matchups says as much about boxing politics as it does about personal choice. The most ironic twist is what his retirement does to the landscape he leaves behind. Divisions open. Titles scatter. New contenders finally get their shot. Fans who complained about stagnation now get chaos, opportunity, and competition. In that sense, Crawford's exit reshapes the sport even in absence. His shadow will loom over every champion who follows, because comparisons will be inevitable. Technique, versatility, ring intelligence. The standard has been set. Whether he returns remains the unanswered question. Boxing history suggests caution before believing any retirement is permanent. Legends have walked away only to be pulled back by opportunity, ego, or money. A stated price tag hovering at an astronomical figure only adds intrigue. If promoters meet it, the world will learn whether Crawford's resolve is as immovable as his jab once was. If they do not, his retirement may stand as one of the rare examples of a fighter truly leaving with nothing left to prove. For now, the sport is left in an unfamiliar position. It must celebrate a great without the comfort of watching him fall. It must respect a champion who refused to be consumed by the game he mastered. And it must accept that sometimes, the most powerful statement a fighter can make is choosing when the final bell rings. Now the question shifts to you. Do you believe Terence Crawford is truly done, or is this just the calm before one final storm? Did he leave at the perfect moment, or did boxing miss out on even greater chapters that will now never be written? Drop your thoughts below, because this debate is far from